I have a commission to make a yarn bowl. I've never made a yarn bowl, didn't even know what one was, so I looked them up online. I thought they had to be about the size of a soccer ball, and I didn't have any blanks big enough. So I cut 3 out of this old wild cherry stump, and then I discovered that yarn bowls are really only 6 or 7 inches across. I have an English walnut blank just the right size. I'll save the cherry for something else. 7.5 this way, 7 high. I think I can get a lidded yarn bowl out of this. Never turned English walnut. Let's see how that goes. Pretty dry. It's been sitting around for some years, I think. It is spindle orientation, so I will not make a recess. It's pretty hard stuff. I'm not going to use the spindle roughing gouge. I'm going to use 3/4 inch bowl gouge. And face shield. 745 seems to be the sweet spot. Pretty hard compared to what I'm used to. The 3/4 inch gouge was getting dull. I switched to the 5/8. For some reason, it cuts much better than the 3/4. If the tenon is more than 5 millimeters, it will sit in the jaws on the tenon rather than on the shoulders. Turning the speed up to about 1,000. Trying to decide whether to leave this. Don't want to get it any smaller than necessary. I want a fairly broad base because this will be tugged on a little bit of weight in the bottom. Looks like I'll have enough to make a lid. So when I turn this around, I'll make a tenon here and then cut this off to where I think the top of the bowl should be and have all this to make a lid. refreshing the burr on the scraper with a diamond card. The scraper left smooth enough surface that I started sanding with 180 and finished with 320. I cleaned up torn grain on the foot with the skew. Ready to turn around. I don't know if this will clear everything in there. Looks like it does. Now, before I shape this too steeply, I have to figure out where I'm going to cut it off for the lid. So once we shape the bowl up to about here, and a lid above that. So I've got to true this up, put a tenon on there, one that ideally could be incorporated into the knob to lift the lid off. I began turning 2.5 years ago, and this is the first time I've attempted to make anything with a lid. So I spent a lot of time looking at it and thinking about it. I don't want to screw this up. What I've decided to do is part this off here, put a faceplate on this to turn the top with a knob, which will be the tenon, and then after that knob's on there, turn this around, hollow out the lid. That's the plan. So this is not the final surface, so there's no need to sand that. I like this parting tool because it's thinner at the top. You can just go straight in. I'll be finishing it up with a saw, I'm sure. I'd gone as far as I was comfortable reaching over the tool rest, about 2¼ inches deep. That left 2 inches of wood to cut with the saw. I'll finish shaping the outside of the bowl with a 5/8 bowl gouge and a scraper, and then I'll turn the interior. The visible line is the border between the unsanded and the sanded part. Again, the wood is smooth enough I can start sanding with 180 grit. The line is still visible. There are other places that didn't get sanded evenly, so I went down to 120 grit and started over. Look at this. I thought I was finished sanding. I still got some of those 120 scratches here. Forgetting that this is a spindle orientation. So if I just hand sand with the grain like this, everything goes away. Do this a bit more with the 180. Do the same with the 240 and 320. Okay, did that up through 320 and then used a worn 320 disc. Now it passes inspection. Okay, depth. Want some weight in the bottom. How much weight in the bottom? I always end up going farther than my depth hole anyway. So we'll go to there. That'll leave 5/8 or so, half anyway when I'm done. Because I took the brad point off, this is a little tricky to get started. I use a square carbide from the starter hole. And down to the rubber band. Well, that does not want to go straight in. Doesn't matter, but never had to do that before. I think it's hunting for the pit, following the soft spot. Well, we're down to the rubber band, so that's done. Well, that's why when I was drilling this hole, the bit wandered right off center very quickly. It was following something like this. I wonder if I can do this with a scraper. The boys didn't allow. I think I'm going to bore this with a Forstner bit. It's for wood turning, not wood drilling, but I want to make this easier on me. Use this one first because it's on there, and then a larger one. About 350. I got the interior as close to the final shape as I could with the square scraper. Now I'll use a spindle gouge to clean up the sides and a 1/2-inch bowl gouge and round scrapers to finish the bottom. There's still a remnant of the depth hole here, just barely. I don't want a flat bottom. I almost waited too late. And I think maybe my curved wrist, this is so deep and this is so short. I have the face shield, air shield off so I can see better. Fan on so I can breathe a little bit. Burning 1,000. The problem with curved wrist is it's this way here and not this way, so you can't come around. Way over the rest. We have a lot of depth hole with almost a 1/4 inch. Still got depth hole. A little ridgy here. And here. Have to go a little deeper. So with this, still maintaining some angle out here, I can still work around here. Still just a trace of torn grain there. This is where the drill bit ended up. Okay, one more pass. I thought this moment would never arrive, but it's finally ready for sanding, starting with 60 grit and going up through 320. And after all that sanding, I still was not happy. I don't think I need to do anything more to this. I certainly hope not. We'll put it in the wipe-on poly. Whoops, rough spot here. What's that? Don't go away. This will be quick. Well, looks like I'm going to have some cavities to fill. These are so old they might not be any good, so I guess I ought to open them up before I get all wrapped up in the instructions. I haven't opened either one of these wood fillers in several years. Pretty good. You dig in a little bit. Imperfections that need filling include the pith in this knot and the pith in the bottom of the bowl. That's all there is to that. 2 hours to dry, it says. This is very slightly larger in diameter right here than the top of the bowl. The opening in the faceplate ring is smaller than the stub I sawed off, so I'll have to sand that down so the faceplate ring will fit flat on the blank. I also don't have any room to spare in diameter, so I'll have to center this perfectly. Right there. I sanded down the high center with a 60 grit disc. This is all mounted up, but this is my record power chuck, which does not turn true. I have to think it's the chuck because the Vic mark turns perfectly true here. Record power, this chuck is not made in England. It is made in People's Republic of China. After a lot of experimenting with different thicknesses of shims and places to put them, I have a mark on the shaft, and a single piece of normal copy paper pretty much gets things running true. And that's as close to true as that's going to get. I hope taking the wobble out doesn't make this too small. I can put that bowl back on and adjust it, but I do not want to. 1/2 bowl gouge. You can criticize gloves all you want, but those chips are hot. At the bottom of the lid, I don't have any diameter to spare, so I'm going to switch to a square scraper to minimize the amount of wood I take off. I check the diameters to see if they match. I think this is the first time I've ever used a faceplate ring. I like it. If you need to frequently remove it and put it back on, it's a lot faster and just as accurate as a threaded faceplate. I like to show everything in my videos the way Richard Raffin does, and Tomislav Tomasic, other professionals who work fast. I work extremely slowly. If I did not speed things up and leave things out, we'd be here all night. This is coming up on an hour now. I will do a final edit. I don't know what it'll come down to, but I don't like videos longer than 40 minutes maximum, preferably under 30. What I'm doing here is beginning to shape the knob in the top of the lid. I want the knob to fit inside one of my chucks with the jaws nearly closed so the corners won't leave marks on it. I want the knob to double as a tenon. Diameter feels about right. I try to imagine a hand smaller than mine. Now, I didn't measure that for any particular chuck jaws because I completely forgot. That's what I'm going to do, is turn around, put this in the chuck so I can hollow the bottom. Brilliant rush, as usual. A lot of open grain here. I wouldn't call it torn, just open. Much too big for this. And it's not going to go down into this. So that leaves me with this. Looks like those jaws are going to work one way or another. This is ready for sanding almost. Put it on the rest first. Right now, this is a perfect fit on the top of the bowl. But, actually it is just a hair big, and that's a good thing because I've got to rebate this to drop this into the bowl. Not very much. No more than 3 or 4 millimeters. It has to be more tapered. So what I need to do here is bring this down a little bit, come in here a little bit, inside diameter 141. So I need to make this 140. Need to come in 14. That may sound good on paper, but it does not allow for sanding. If I'd been smarter, I would have tested this with a bowl every now and then instead of relying on numbers. $13. 14. One too many. So what I will do here is turn both the bowl and this, not like this, but more like this. That will disguise this slight error. If I were to make the knob small enough that the jaws would close without leaving corner marks, the knob would be too small to be aesthetically pleasing. So I decided to accept the corner marks and sand them off by hand when it was finished. But I think I need to do it tomorrow. I'm getting just tired enough to start making mistakes. Well, not start making mistakes, but start making critical mistakes. Mistakes I cannot fix. Things on the order of making this a millimeter too small. Just cut a millimeter too deep. What I'm going to do now, put wood filler in those little holes there. I'll put this back in and round this over so they will be rounded rather than sharp lines, and then this sloppy fit won't be so obvious. In the last video, I sort of left everybody hanging, including myself. I was too lazy to put this back on. This adapter just does not spin true. Oh, it's got a wobble. Put my wheel back on before I forget here. The handle, Laguna handle, spins true. Everything's true except that adapter. Oh, and my record power chuck. Meanwhile, back at the yarn bowl, the old expression, "let me sleep on it," has some validity. Woke up this morning realizing what I can do here to solve the problem. Too much slop. If I'm willing to sacrifice 2 millimeters here, come in not quite so far, and then turn that into a cove so this will center snugly. That will mean taking down the outside of the bowl itself just a little, and that will change the shape of this also. Well, I'll take this down first. That will tell me how much I need to take down everything else. Just about that much. That's got it. But now we're smaller than the bowl. So I'll put this back in, take that down. Oh, I hate to do that after all that sanding. And speaking of sanding, this nail looks about right. Perfect fit. A little bit of sanding to do because I got that wood filler in there. Now I'm just going to dome this out a little bit. Not too much. Hope it stays on here. I think what I'm going to do is sharpen all the gouges before I proceed. I'm going to try the 5/8 just because it's such a good gouge. This went on for another 20 minutes before I finally began sanding, starting with 60 grit. Inside sanded through 320. How badly damaged is the knob? You can feel it. I'm going to have to hand sand in here. There's slight bits of roughness from the jaw joints. Very, very slight. So this is going to take a little while. I forgot to turn the camera back on. I took this down with a 1-inch scraper, shear scraped it, rounded it over a little bit. Now to do some sanding, and then I think time to take the tenon off. Not quite a perfect melding of curves, but plenty close enough. That's a little rough. A little sharp, I mean. But that's where this seats. Yeah, leave that alone, you moron. Yeah, that was stupid. Glad I quit when I did. Oh, there's a crack I don't remember. I don't see it inside, which is what you call a good thing. After changing the battery, I didn't turn the camera on. I just don't push that button hard enough. Working on it with a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, and I'll switch to the spindle gouge. Don't like the sound of that. that's it. I'm not going to risk damaging this. There's bunk down here and I'm not sure exactly where it is. No, it's not right there anyway. Could have gone a little farther, but did not know that. Pith is over here. The yarn bowl is essentially complete. I haven't put finish on it yet because it's not completely complete. I have discovered several different styles of yarn bowls. The simplest is just a bowl, no lid, nothing else, no cutouts for yarn to feed through, and the advertising says this way you can use the bowl for something else if you want to. Usually, most popular ones I've seen have a cutout like this. No lid, but cut out like this so the yarn feeds out here. It will keep feeding out here, it won't come out. That's pretty interesting, and I cut one into this broken bowl, just to see if I could do that. And I want some more practice before I try something like that on this. But then it occurred to me, I could put a notch in the lid. And I think I would rather do that because it's easier to make a new lid than to make a new bowl. First I'll drill a hole so this will end up round, and then cut a narrow slot up to it. I'm going to do that in the drill press. Pushing it up against the bit because this will just barely fit in my drill press. And now with a fine saw, cut a notch down to that. Okay, if that's the center. Cut these about there. Okay, that's the scary part done. The rest is just hand sanding. .3/8" knitting needle storage holes. It's the first time I've used wipe-on poly. It darkened the wood considerably, which is good, but it did not darken the spots of wood filler. I went over that with a Q-tip and some dark Kona stain, dabbing it on to sort of retouch the light spots. Worked pretty well. Well, there goes $20 worth of this. I'm all over the floor. Now I'm taking this stuff off the floor because it's damned expensive. I put on 3 coats of wipe-on poly, lightly sanding between coats. This project took more than a week, partly because I was dealing with basement flooding the entire time. Doing the video took another 2 weeks. I'm glad it's over. I bet you are too. Came out pretty well, I think. When we get to this last picture, use your imagination. Pretend these skewers are knitting needles and that piece of string is the end of a ball of yarn. If you made it through this far, thanks for watching.